Well, this election broke in the final days and even hours for Republican candidates in many of these key Senate races. So was this election an endorsement of the Republicans, or was it a repudiation of the failed policies of Barack Obama? Joining me now is CNS News Editor-in-Chief Terry Jeffrey. Terry, welcome.
Good to see you, Tony. Thanks
Good to see you. You're smiling.
Yeah, I am.
Let me start with that question. Was last night's, what I would say, a historic shift? Was it an embracing of the GOP or more of a repudiation of Barack Obama's policies?
I think it was more a repudiation of Barack Obama's policies. You even saw something like 33% of the people who went out and voted for Republican members of the House of Representatives don't like the Republican leadership in Congress. And it is an historical trend that in the second term of a two-term president in the midterm elections, it is a referendum on him. If he's unpopular,
right,
like George Bush was in 2006, like Obama is now, you see people go out and vote.
But this was a significant shift in that it really broke at the last minute. I mean, given where this administration has been, I mean, this is not new that they've got bad policy.
Yeah.
Of course, we had ISIS in the Middle East. We had the Ebola. We've got the southern border. All of these issues. You would have thought that the Republicans could have locked this up weeks ago.
I think so. If you look at the Ed Gillespie race in Virginia, I think it's interesting because Gillespie really didn't project himself to the public as standing for any particular issues. It's almost like he wasn't there. He simply was the Republican on the ballot, yet he almost won. If you look at the exit polls, Tony, what I find most striking about them is that the electorate yesterday was culturally conservative. For example, they ask in the exit polls how often someone goes to church. There are people who never go to church. That a super majority of them vote for Democrats. Once someone walks into a church, they become more likely to vote for a Republican. You look at the more often someone went to church, the more likely they voted for a Republican. If you're married and you have kids, you voted for a Republican. If you go to work all the time, if you're a full-time worker, you vote for a Republican. If you believe in traditional marriage, you vote for a Republican. So I think what the Republicans need to remember, even though there were, and by the way, all of the new senators who were elected, these are pro-life people who presented themselves as cultural conservatives to their voters. The Republicans need to remember that's who elected them.
See, that I think is critical because taking those demographics even further, you look at those under 29, only 12%, they only made up 12% of the electorate, and of course they broke primarily for the Democrats. Where can the Republicans go to expand their voting population? You've got to look at who votes for them.
Well, that's exactly true. I think there are some troubling long-term trends in the demographics of the country. For example, the last 5 years, according to the CDC, 40% of the babies born in America were born to unmarried mothers.
Right.
So that trend, actually, if you're a Democrat, you want broken families politically. Right. I mean, it works for you. If you want to preserve American liberty, you can't have that. You need to preserve the traditional family, not just for moral reasons, but because that is the fabric of our society.
So what makes it work?
It makes it work. So we see that long-term trend. It's troubling. Republican politicians, I think, have a duty as statesmen and stateswomen to fight that on the grassroots level, not just because it works politically, because we need it as a country.
Let's take, for instance, let's look at because we hear a lot about this, well, we've got to get the millennial vote, those under 29. There's two problems with that, I think, is that they do not vote in the percentages that those over 55 and others vote in. So they just don't make up that large portion of the electorate. Plus, they're not locked into the views that they hold today.
Exactly. I think younger people have a tendency when they reach a certain age, which is about the same time they're being allowed to vote, to question the beliefs that they're brought up with, to question the things their parents taught them. That's a thing that you see human beings going through all the time. As they grow older, they get married, they get a job, they have responsibilities,
and
they become more conservative.
Their parents become so much smarter when they have to face the same issues.
Well, exactly. And there's also a thing about leadership. People do understand the truth. When Ronald Reagan, who was an older man running for president, went out and spoke the truth, he inspired young people. I think politicians that have courage, that speak the truth, That's what being charismatic is. So this is another duty of these folks elected yesterday: lead young people by fighting for the truth.
Okay, let's start right there. What did the Republicans do from this point forward to solidify this majority they've been given and pave the way for the GOP to the White House in 2016?
Okay, I'll tell you one thing they shouldn't do. In September, before they left to run for the election, they passed a CR that they purposefully determined would expire on December 11th, meaning they empowered the lame duck Congress to come back and fund the government. So all these people who were thrown out of office yesterday or retired, they're going to decide on what is spent and what is not spent. The new guys coming in aren't going to get an opportunity that day. The Republican leadership should not make a deal with Harry Reid and Barack Obama to permanently fund Obamacare through the rest of next year. They shouldn't fund Planned Parenthood. They shouldn't fund anything that's immoral, quite frankly. They should do a small thing that brings them past the 1st of January so the new guys come in. Let's have a real national battle over those issues.
What are the other policy priorities that the Republicans should advance going forward?
Well, I think a big one remains the freedom of religion. You know, we won the Hobby Lobby case, but it's a very narrowly defined decision, and there are still a great many other cases out there. For example, Wheaton College. They're trying to force Wheaton College to sign this form that directs their insurance provider to provide abortion-inducing drugs. That is an outrageous attack on religious liberty. If the Republicans explain it, people will understand it. They need to fight that. And quite frankly, I'd say for a congressman to come in having said he was a pro-lifer or believed in freedom of religion, and the first thing he does is vote for a bill that gives Barack Obama the ability to attack your free exercise rights is immoral. So they can't do it. So they need to stand up and fight for that.
What you're laying out is an aggressive path forward where they have to draw a clear contrast between them and the current administration. Is that what you believe voters are looking for?
Yes. And you know, there's a lot of places in the country where not a lot of people went out to vote. And yesterday that helped Republicans because people were coming out to express their dismay with the established order and with President Barack Obama. The Republicans, to inspire their electorate in 2016, need to tell people that we are going to fight for you and what you believe in.
That would be counter to some expectations.
Yes, it would. Well, the problem is, I will say, it's when you had this great election in 2010, the Tea Party got the Republicans a majority in the House. The first thing they did, Tony, was turn around and pass a CR that fully implemented Obamacare.
Right.
And I have
funded Planned Parenthood and abortions in D.C.
Yes. And faster than almost any group of congressmen I've seen come to Washington, you saw these guys elected in 2010 become part of the Washington establishment. They can't, and it backfired on the Republicans in 2012. These folks need to come in and fight for what the people who elected them believe in. They have to stand up for the things. Everybody can go look on their websites today. These guys said they were for marriage. They said they were pro-life. They said they were for repealing Obamacare. Now the people who went out and voted for them expected them to act like they really believe what they said.
So for voters, this yesterday was not the end, it was just the beginning.
Yes, sir.
All right, Terry Jeffrey, thanks so much for being with us. As always, appreciate your insight.
Thanks for having me.